Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today, we're excited to talk about some tech tools you can use to streamline your life, whether in law school or beyond. Your Law School Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan and Lee Burgess. That's me. We're here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website, Career Dicta. Alison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today, we're excited to talk about some tech tools you can use to streamline your life, whether you're in law school or beyond. And we would like to thank ProBoards for sponsoring this episode. They make some very cool keyboards and keypads for the legal profession, which have more than 35 keys specific to legal practice, including that section key that I always hated entering on its own. We'll talk more about this later. Oh, gosh, I know. We'll talk about it later. If you want to find out more about their products, you can check out legalkeyboards.com, or you can find them on social at Instagram, ProBoards LLC, Twitter, Legal Keyboard, or Facebook, LegalBoard. We're excited to share more, so stay tuned. Well, first off, Lee, why do we even want to talk about this topic?
Well, because this topic is so important, because it really is what allows you to control your life in many ways. You know, can you organize your life and work? And can you do it anywhere that you want to be living? Lots of firms and companies are now kind of more open to remote work, and you can take advantage of these opportunities, but you can't do that unless you can use tech tools to keep your life in order. And it really does make your life better. I just did a full reorg of how I manage my household, and it's just been really great. I just can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, I think this is one of those topics that, people are sometimes kind of resistant to, but for me, it comes down to really, how can I make work fit into my life and the life that I want to have, not vice versa. And, in some ways, the pandemic was a great opportunity for us to sort of see, what is working, what is not working. I mean, some of the stuff that we found out, probably people might want to hold on to. Other things, not so much, might not want to have a Zoom happy hour again as long as I live. But I think it's also, thinking about how these things can make you more effective. So can you get more done with less hassle?
Yep.
That's a plus. Or can you do better work with no more effort? So that's kind of the way that I think about it. Why would I want to spend my time doing something that I could just automate away? Or why would I want to do something that I might screw up when maybe, the machine might be better?
Yeah. I'd like to add one thing to that too, is to lighten the mental load.
Right.
Because I think that as high functioning people, I think that we often say, well, we can just hold it all in our brains. Like, I don't need to have all these tools to track things and to coordinate things or make sure that the calendar is booking at the right time or dealing with time zones because, we're efficient, like smart people. But the mental load of life, especially as your life gets more complicated, is insane. So relying on tools just releases some of that space that you're taking up with trying to just remember all sorts of random things and to try and look efficient. When you can rely on these systems, it just frees your mind up to do other things. And you're probably going to be better at whatever you're doing if your mind isn't full of tasks that you haven't recorded anywhere.
Yeah, I think even something as simple as a time zone, which seems easy, it's astonishing how many times people screw these things up.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Even for me, I'm a person who's lived in different time zones. I'm used to time zones. I understand time zones. I could tell you all the time zones in the US and probably a lot of Europe and how far away they are from California. But I still, every time I get, an Eastern time invite, I'm like, wait, which direction am I going? Am I adding? Am I subtracting time? And sometimes I get it wrong.
I know, it just happens. And it's really disruptive. Little things like that can be really disruptive to get wrong. We've all had it happen.
It makes you look like a total idiot, basically.
Yeah, I know. And it can be equal confusion on both sides. Anyway, the bottom line is these little things that can become huge annoyances can be fixed with technology, many of them.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so much easier. So, I think we have always leaned into this because when we started this business, we've always been remote. We did not want to have, a physical office space that we had people work out of. And you cannot run a remote business without lots of tech tools. So it was a huge part of how we worked. Now, and we've spent a lot of time over the years building more and more processes out to make things easier. But since we're talking about time zones, can we talk about how much we absolutely love using a tool called Calendly to manage our calendars? Because it just stops this problem from ever happening.
Yeah, and it also cuts down on that endless back and forth, which I find incredibly annoying in an email of like, oh, let's have a meeting. When are you available? Here are some times I'm available this week. Oh, well, I can't do Tuesday, but I can do Wednesday. Oh, you're not a free Wednesday now. I'm like, this drives me insane.
It drives me insane. And then somebody will say, oh, I had the time zone down wrong. And I'm like, how? Because Google fixed it for you. Google sent you an email in your time zone. It knew because it's watching us. It knows where you are. It prevents a lot of these mistakes. And I think that initially when we started using Calendly, and that was probably 6 years ago that we switched over using Calendly, which for those of you who don't know, you can set up an account and basically create all these meeting options. So people can schedule anything. I schedule my tennis matches through Calendly. I mean, we use it for work, but it's become if you want to play tennis with me, you have to schedule it on Calendly. That's just how it works. But then I got all this feedback how everybody was really excited about my Calendly link to schedule our tennis matches in our tennis league because it was so efficient. We didn't have to have the email conversations about scheduling the tennis match.
Oh, yeah. And once you add a group to this, that's like a whole next level. So, I think someone who's listening to this as a law student, you might be thinking like, oh, I don't need to schedule meetings, but think about all the things you do schedule. You may have a study group and that study group is meeting multiple times a week. Like you may have clubs that you're involved in that are having meetings and doing all these things. Like anything that there's coordination like this, just put it in a Calendly.
Mentor-mentee meetings.
Yeah.
I know, mentor-mentee meetings. Or if you're the president of a club and you are interviewing people for something. I mean, it's just, every party loves getting a link to schedule. So, I mean, and I've even used it when scheduling people that are more impressive than I am. We'll have a podcast guest, somebody who's quite impressive, but I will still be here is my link to my calendar. You can pick a time that's convenient for you. And people love it because nobody wants to do the back and forth. And, you can use it for just about anything. And then it also populates everyone's calendar on the person who signed up and yours. And then you don't have confusion or people not showing up for things. It's really miraculous. I wish I'd had something like that in law school because it just really kind of clarifies your life. It's great.
Right. And I think I'm thinking, you want to do some informational interviews, perhaps. Once you send that initial, hi, I'd like to have an informational interview. And they're saying, oh, okay. It would be great if you just sent them back a link that's perfect. Here are some times I'm available. When would be good for you? Done.
Yes. And Calendly has this newer functionality that I've started to use a lot as well, where you can just basically, instead of the way Calendly works is you can kind of create these different kind of meeting options, so let's use my tennis example. Of course, I have all the ones for work. If you've ever talked to us on the phone, you know that's how you schedule time to talk to us. But then sometimes, I might be playing tennis on my Calendly. You can now know this. But I had a friend who's also a lawyer who owns her own business. She and I were trying to schedule a hike. And we're both busy. And so we both use competing calendaring softwares, by the way, which I find even more comical is when one person sends different calendaring software than the other. But you can go onto Calendly and just go into your calendar and just pick windows. So she got an email with 10 windows. And instead of me making a list of possible times, which I also hate doing, then she just could click a button and then it created the meeting request for both of us, and then it was on our calendars. Magic. And that is something that I think would be really have been effective in law school, because then again, you don't have this back and forth about when you're going to do whatever it is that you're planning on doing. You just do that. It's populated on your calendar. You don't have to think about it.
Right.
It's great.
And if you are dealing with different time zones, everyone gets it in their own time zone. So you don't even have to have that discussion. They just see the times in their personal time zone, which also brings us back to the idea that you do need some sort of probably digital calendar.
That's true. That's true.
Because you have to have something for something like Calendly to integrate with. We're both devotees of, the Google Calendar. I think they have a lot of great sharing options. So you could have like a Google Calendar just for your study group. And then like you can have that show up on your calendar and your, kind of integrates into your own one. And they also let you show multiple time zones, which is a really lesser known feature that I had to uncover. And I think you're using now as well.
I do. Yes. So that helps a lot with travel. I also think that with Google Calendar, one of the things that's powerful as well with the sharing option is that you could really make it like very specific.
Right.
So we have some people in our family that travel a bunch. And so there is a Google Calendar that just says where they are at any given point, which is kind of amazing. So I can open up my Google Calendar and be like, where are they? And then it like shows me where they are. And I'm like, awesome. And then I don't have to text and ask.
Right.
It's kind of cool. But I had never thought of doing Google Calendars that were that specific, like the shared, like you were saying, like the shared study team Google Calendar, or you could make it very specific. I could even say that instead of having back and forths, let's say with your family about travel plans, you could just create a Google Calendar that would track your travel plans and have all your flight information on it, and then share it with your family. And then you're like, look at the calendar. That's when I'll be home.
And you could even give that to me, because I'm always
Magic.
asking you like, wait, what was the date you were traveling again? I forgot to write it down.
Yeah. I know I should. I need to create my own Google Calendar of my travel schedule to share with Allison.
Definitely.
So you're right.
Be very handy. Please do that.
That's a good, okay, great. I will put it on my to-do list. Awesome.
Right.
See, look at the productivity that's happening just in this podcast right now.
How are you maintaining your to-do list? I know where mine is.
I know mine. I know that I sometimes leave, but I always come back to Trello. Yeah. I know I just came back to it. I broke up with it for a little bit, and now I'm back.
Yeah, no, I'm back. I'm full. That is probably my primary use case for Trello, is maintaining a board that has my to-do list on it. And when other people look at this board, because some other people have access to it, they kind of freak out because it has all these lists of like, this week and this month. And I'm like, those are like 5 years old. I only use the one list basically. That's like right now. And that list is long, but I will say, and here's another tech tip. I've integrated that Trello board using Zapier with other things like Slack. So if I'm in Slack and there's someone asks me to do something, and that's like, that's really easy to lose, because those, we get a lot of Slack messages that scroll away. Like if somebody asks me to do something and then 10 minutes later I've forgotten it, all I have to do is hit save and it goes onto my Trello to-do list.
Magic. And I do love the email to board options. Yeah. So you can take things in your email and put them on your board so they get done. Also magical.
I do that all the time.
And then I think, I do that all the time too. And then the other thing that I'm playing with in my own life management, which I'm kind of becoming obsessed with, is templates for repeatable tasks. And so... and I think this is something that we do somewhat in work, but I hadn't really applied to my life. But I think even as a law student, this would have been really great. So like I'm starting to build out, I've really nerded out on this. So I don't know that you and I have talked about this yet, but I've really spent a lot of brain power on this. But, I have kids and my life is very cyclical. Like there are certain things that we do like every fall, every winter, every spring, every summer. And we kind of have travel that happens all of those different times. And so I'm making a seasonal to-do list template for the family of like all the things that have to be done each season, and including things that like in our house, like when you have to get this is what I mean about the mental load. Like every 6 months, apparently you're supposed to change the air conditioning filters. I didn't know this because apparently I missed that class in how to be a grown-up. And so but you could just, now if I have this checklist, I'll be like, oh, it's fall. And I open up my checklist and I'm like, one of the things I have to do is schedule the thing to get changed. Or, you have to do like all of these things, pay your property taxes, like go through that. So I'm doing that. And then I'm also setting up to-do list checklists for things like travel. It's like when I leave town, like all of these 10 things have to happen. I have cats, I have this and that. And then you just go through and you check them off, and you can create cards, because Trello is like all sorts of kind of index cards that you move around. And you can just create these templates and then copy them and then drop them in your to-do list and then just check them all off, and then you're done. And then the next time the situation comes up, it's replicable, you can do it again. And I'm really finding that just by depositing my mental load knowledge onto these little cards, I felt a lot lighter, because I basically held all that knowledge in my head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can definitely see that. And, someone could even apply this. One of the things I think is a great use case for Trello as a law student is organizing things like legal research and writing projects.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you can have, each card for like each possible source, and you have your lists, and you can kind of move them through, like, here's something I read. Well, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to use it? How am I going to use it? Am I going to reject it? Am I going to maybe save it for later and think about it? All these things are there, but you could also use that, to sort of create templates, I would imagine, on that type of board as well, so that for each one, you're probably putting in certain types of information, and then everything is just right there, and it's going to make it so much easier to do your citations later.
Yeah, and I think that what I've really started to like lean into is just this idea, and we do this more at work. We're very process-oriented at work, so we have a lot of processes run by technology.
Because we don't like doing work if we don't have to.
Right, exactly. But could see like having, like sitting down when you have a clear mind and coming up with your proofreading plan for your legal writing assignment, and making that in a checklist, and like having that recorded somewhere. So when it becomes time to do that final proofreading, you're just going through and executing the predefined plan. I think studying for finals could be the same way, making a list of all your possible practice questions and then moving them along the Trello board as you use them and do them. I really think that spending time when you have a clearer mind, like creating a lot of this documentation, then when you're super stressed and busy, which is oftentimes when we come back to these technology tools to rely on them, you're going to be in a much better place, because you don't have to make these decisions anymore. Like, I don't have to decide when in the year I plan on our trip to go skiing in February, because we do it every single February. I just know that come October, that has to be booked. Now it's on my Trello card. I know that I don't have to remember to do that again, because something's going to remind me to do it. And I think you can do that for a lot of things in your life. And then you don't have to hold on to that mental load energy.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing the number of times that I'll send something either from Slack or from an email to my Trello to-do list. And it might be literally 2 hours later or something. And I sit down and multiple times a day, I kind of look at that list and be like, what am I forgetting? And oftentimes it is stuff that literally I've seen 2 hours earlier and completely forgotten about entirely.
Yeah. I know, because we're inundated with information all day, all day. It's very hard to keep it all straight. Okay, so we're obsessed with Trello. We're obsessed with Calendly. We love Google Calendars. I now have a new Google Calendar to make. I should write that on my Trello board so I don't forget. And what other tools? We love Slack. We mentioned Slack. We use Slack as a team, as a way to communicate. And I think it's great. We've been using it for years.
Yeah, we have, because I think email is just, a complete cluster at this point. So the more you can get out of your email, the better, because you're just never going to look at it. I don't think people who are in law school even use email, except for the school makes them. But, they've already figured this one out. Yeah,
that's very true. So I definitely think, I think Slack could be great for, a study group, to keep it out of emails, keep it out of text message, because you can also share Dropbox links. Can be very helpful. And you can go back and search conversations, which I would think if I was in a study group, I would really appreciate being able to do that.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, speaking of Dropbox, this is one of our critical ones that you need Dropbox or something like it. Oh,
that's true.
Because you need to be doing backups if you are a law student. This sounds like it would go without saying, but the number of stories we have heard of people losing exams, losing law review write-on competitions, losing their legal memos at the last second. It's just really amazing. I'll be honest, the amount of chaos that these things cause, just set up Dropbox or something like it.
I know.
Have it automated. Again, you don't have to think about it. I don't think about the fact that Dropbox is saving all of my documents. I just save my documents and then they're in the cloud. Done. But if I ever need them.
And then it's their job to make sure they don't lose them.
Right. And they're better at that than I am, and this is what they get paid for.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that like the number of times that we have gone back and found some like very old documents and things like that, that, just randomly popped up that we needed. And it's like, oh, you know what? I bet that's in Dropbox someplace. And sure enough, it was.
Yeah. I think it's pretty miraculous how seamless this backing up has become. And it's just a huge mistake not to make this second nature into how your machine is set up. I mean, and I know that people think, oh, these horror stories about technology crashing can't happen to me. Well, they can. They've happened to a lot of people. But I think it comes up a lot too, even with things like 8-hour take-homes. We were just doing a legal exam workshop for some law students this weekend. And we were talking about, even managing an 8-hour take-home and how your backup plan needs to be part of your plan. Like if I was making a Trello card about how I was going to organize, as you see how I brought it all back, how I was going to organize my 8-hour take-home, backing up my work would be part of my schedule.
Right. And I think, what I would probably do, because I'm obsessed with alarms on my phone, is I might A, have Dropbox set up and ready to go, but B, is my backup every hour. I might have myself email the current draft I was working on, save a new draft with a different name, and then move on. That's going to take me, 30 seconds, 60 seconds? But if anything happens, it means that I'm not going to lose an entire day's worth of work, which would be a literal disaster if it's an 8-hour take-home.
Yep. So you've just got to stay on it. And that is one of those things where if you think through your plan and your system before you're in the exam, then you don't have to use any mental energy on it. It's just second nature.
Yeah. And for me, what I do every night before I go to bed is I look at my calendar, and for every meeting that I have scheduled at that point at, 11 p.m., midnight, whatever, they're probably not changing that much unless something gets canceled. I go ahead and set an alarm 10 minutes before that meeting. And then I always know, what? I know everything on my schedule. Nothing else is going to get added. Maybe something gets taken away. But at least if it's done, then I don't have to think about it.
That's true. But don't you get alerts from your Google Calendar?
Well, those just go into the morass of email. I don't let my phone alert me to anything.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was like, my phone dings me 10 minutes before.
No. I basically turned off all notifications on my phone so that they don't drive me crazy.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, some stuff shows up like text messages, but they don't ding. I don't let anything ding at me.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not a big dinger either. It really drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, I don't like my phone basically doing stuff for me. My watch sometimes gets me because I haven't somehow managed to turn off all of those, but I'm like, great, a crypto thing is going up. Why am I getting this?
I always get the mindfulness notification, and then I get annoyed by it, and I don't. God. I think that's the opposite. I know.
Don't bother me, mindfulness.
That's what it is. Basically, it's always really early in the morning too when I'm having my coffee, and I'm like, back away. Oh,
a friend of mine, I don't know how he does this, but he has some app now that apparently figures out when it thinks he should go to bed based on how long he's been awake, and then it starts playing like a lullaby.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Kind of funny, but it kind of makes sense in a way.
Oh my gosh.
I'll have to find out what that one's called. I was like, wait, what is this? It's 9:30. Why is your phone going doo doo doo?
That's really funny.
It's like, oh yeah, it's because I got up at 4 a.m.
Okay. All right. I think the last tech tool that we heavily rely on is Asana or Asana. Asana is, I think, how they're saying it. Do you know officially how they say it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I always wonder because I'm like,
I don't know either.
I know how the yoga people would pronounce it.
I do know people.
Yeah.
I know people who work there. So I should just write to them and say, I should ask them. Okay. We'll circle back on that topic. But that's another great project management tool that is, I would say, more linear than Trello. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but still great for managing, projects and collaborating with other people. It's just a different type of tool. So if you're especially in the beginning of your law school career or have only tried one or two of these tools, you should check them all out to see which one really speaks to you because different tools work for different people.
Yeah. And there are a lot of similar things. We're not saying these are the only things you could possibly use. These are just the ones we happen to be more familiar with. But there are other ones that kind of integrate a bunch of stuff. Look around. But basically, you want something to like organize your tasks and organize your projects and all these kind of things.
Yeah. Well, now that we've talked about all of these tools to make your work easier and hopefully more accurate, let's take a moment to talk about the LegalBoard and LegalPad that you were mentioning earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
we'll be honest. Yeah. At first we were like, what is this?
yeah, they reached out to us. And we're kind of like, wait, what? What are you offering here? I don't understand. But they sent me the LegalPad, and it's actually super cool, I have to say. Like, I would have loved this when I was in law school, particularly when I was doing law review, site checking and stuff. So this thing, it's like, do you know those things that I always think of, like the accountant having, where it was like it plugged into their computer and it was like a separate keypad? Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so this is like that, but it's actually like stuff that lawyers and law students need to use every single day. So, things like the section. I mean, I don't even know what you call these, like special characters, basically. But you got like the section, the paragraph, the copyright. And then this was pretty mind blowing because you actually have things like F second and F third and F sup.
Ooh.
And the thing there that got me, that really blew my mind, was even just looking at the list. I'm like, one of those has a space. The other ones don't. Would I ever remember which one is which? No, I would have to look that up basically every time I looked at it. This will just do it for you. How amazing is that?
That's pretty cool. Because that's an easy way to make a mistake.
Right, exactly. It's just
where
like
the space goes.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And like that is the kind of thing you will lose points for in your legal writing assignment. You will get yelled at in the law review office for like why do I need to internalize this? I could just use this keypad and it would do it for me. Also, it's things like plaintiff and defendant, the character and the word. So all this stuff is just like, actually, this makes a ton of sense. I was pretty blown away by it.
Yeah. And you can try to set up kind of special shortcuts for some of this stuff, although you can't do the F sup and all of that. I don't think you can do that on your keyboard.
I mean, maybe
but
you could.
It's clunky.
Yeah. No, I did.
Maybe, but it's clunky.
Yeah. No, I would remember.
I have the section symbol.
I had the section, but I do remember like if I was typing, I would have to kind of like stop and open up like the section thing because I'm not good at, for some reason, my brain just doesn't remember like keys the way that some people do like keyboard shortcuts all the time. I'm just really bad at that. It like distracts me.
Interesting. Well, then you needed this.
Yeah.
But you didn't have it.
I did not have it. I don't think it even existed. But yeah, they basically have two different keyboards. They have like the wired model, the wireless model, and then they have this keypad that you can just like throw in a bag and bring with you. I thought it was pretty mind blowing. So anyway, if you want to check it out, you can go to legalkeyboards.com and take a look.
Great. Well, now that we have just talked about all of the technology tools that we're obsessed with, we kind of looked at our team, or we spoke to our team, we asked for some other suggestions. And what are the other things that folks on our team are kind of obsessed with to organize their lives?
Well, one thing that I don't use that I probably should is a password manager. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because there's so many situations of like broken into things, or like you can't really use like a crappy password these days on your important accounts just because it will get hacked.
Yep.
So if you have a password manager, you have to remember one thing, then you can have your secured passwords and you don't have to remember anything else.
Yeah. Again, mental load.
Yeah.
Lighten the mental load.
Right. And that just it like secures your life. You could have a 14-digit completely random password versus like 8 that you're trying to remember yourself. And who wants to remember passwords?
Yeah.
Another one that I learned about fairly recently and had to use a lot, 2-factor authentication apps. So more and more sites are requiring this. It always seemed like a huge hassle, but again, like it's actually a lot more secure. And as long as you don't lose your phone, it's really not a big deal. You basically just like open up Google Authenticator or whatever one you've selected, and like you put in the 6-digit code on the website and you move on with your day. And like it's actually a lot more secure. So I think that's something worth looking at.
Yeah. We also have been recently talking a lot about spaced repetition and some tools that can help law students and bar studiers do spaced repetition practice, which is a way to very efficiently memorize information. And we actually have some content on that, so stay tuned for that. But you should check out spacedrepetition.com to learn more about how you can study in 10-minute blocks and speed up your memorization. It's pretty awesome science, actually.
It is. And I think using an app for it is so great because it just kind of like, again, does that thinking for you. You just do your 10 minutes and it tells you what to do.
Yep.
I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I am definitely a fan of Zapier. We use that I think we have like 80 Zaps plus, maybe even more running for the business. But that's kind of next level. But if you start to get into this, you might want to start connecting things, and that's what Zapier can do for you. So like my example of starring something in Slack and it goes on a to-do board in Trello, that is something that we set up with Zapier. Very easy.
Yeah. And other things that you can use technology for that folks can find very helpful are screen time apps. So you can set screen time limits on things you do that are distracting on your phone. But there are also other apps that help you kind of do focused time or optimize how you focus or shut down certain things on your phone. I think Do Not Disturb is pretty powerful. I think that, along with using some of this technology, we also have to make sure that we're not getting 10,000 notifications, like you were mentioning, that you've turned off your notifications on your phone. And so I think that you can sometimes use the technology to keep the world quiet while you're trying to work, so you're not constantly being interrupted. And I think as a law student, that's a really big deal. If you're constantly being interrupted while you're studying, you're just not going to be in the right headspace to really get the most out of what you're doing.
That's definitely right. And another one that I've added on my laptop, and I think it does it automatically on my phone, is like one that kind of shuts down the like blue aspects and goes more orange as the day gets later, so that it kind of encourages your brain to shut down too. So if you are someone who's working a lot after dark, that can be a really good option. I think the one I was using on my laptop was called Flux, and frankly, eventually it annoyed me because it was like too pink. But the basic idea is there.
Yeah. Well, really what this podcast hopefully has shown you is that it's worth thinking about how technology can keep you organized and streamlined. And I really just have to say that if you're feeling incredibly overwhelmed by your to-do lists, your life lists, like all the things that you are trying to manage at once, your job hunt, the list really goes on and on. Once you organize your stuff, it does lighten the load.
Oh, for sure.
So just setting aside some time to think about how to effectively manage what's overwhelming you, it really can change your headspace.
Yeah, and I think this can be particularly important for people who have executive functioning issues that you're aware of. If you have ADHD, things like that, you definitely want to really spend some time and energy sitting down and thinking, what can I not have to deal with anymore?
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, I just think this is something that hopefully is a little bit fun to play with. You can definitely go down a rabbit hole, but I think, start with the low-hanging fruit. Make sure you've got your digital calendar, maybe a scheduling link, and then, your backups running, and then some way to organize things. And I think that alone would get people pretty far down the road.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, thanks again to ProBoards for sponsoring this episode, and make sure you check out their website at legalkeyboards.com or their social at ProBoards LLC on Instagram, at Legal Keyboard at Twitter, and at LegalBoard at Facebook. And with that, I think we're out of time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on your favorite listening app. We'd really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Alison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.